Welcome to this video on functions and word problems. Today we're going to talk about how to create functions from word problems, which is pretty much exactly like creating an equation from a word problem. However, we're going to talk about some different vocabulary terms and what each of these pieces mean. Because previously you've talked about linear equations and linear functions. So we're going to talk about that slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus b. And we know that m is your slope, x is your input, and b is your y-intercept. We're going to talk about what those things would mean in real life in terms of what your graph would look like and what it would be representing on the graph without actually physically having a graph in front of you. All right, so first we have a moving truck whose rental cost is a flat fee of $75, and then you get charged $2 per miles driven. So we want to know how much it's going to cost us if we drive the truck for 10 miles. So first thing we got to look at our important numbers. So we have $75 is of course important. Actually, we need that to be able to be seen, so I will fix that. So we're going to box that. We also know that $2 is important. 10 miles is going to end up being important. And it's also important to know that it's $2 per mile. And you could actually say that mile is an important number because mile is singular, so it means 1. So in this case, we have to look at the initial rate. The initial rate in this case will be your y-intercept. It's what you're charged right off the bat no matter what. So the y-intercept, or the initial rate in this case, is going to be that $75 because you get charged $75 whether you drive the truck 2 feet or 200 miles. That $75 is going to be charged. The next thing we're going to look at is the rate of change. The rate of change in our y equals mx plus b is our slope. And then we know that the rate of change is that for every mile we drive, we get charged $2. So our rate of change is $2 per mile, or 2/1 when we look at it as a slope. Our input in this case, the thing that is going to be able to change constantly, is miles. That is our independent value. And then our output, our dependent value, is our cost. So our cost is dependent on the miles that we drive. All right, and from this we can create a function. Now, you're looking at this going, well, I know I do 75 plus 2 times m. Okay, so we know it's the cost will be equal to the $2 per mile times the number of miles we drive plus the $75 flat fee. So in this case, you have your initial rate, your initial fee, which is your b, your y-intercept, your $2 per mile, which is your rate of change or your slope, and then your miles, which is your input. It's the number that will change and that determines how much it's going to cost. And then, of course, you have your cost, which is your y, but since we're talking about functions, it's your f of x. So our actual function in this case would be f of x equals 2 times x plus 75. So this is our function. So on a graph, I know that my graph will start at 0.75, and then it'll go up $2 for every 1 mile. So go up $2 for every 1 mile. So it'll have that kind of staircase look to it, and then give us that linear function. Now it's important to note that this time there's 10 miles. So my input does have a number because I want to solve how much it's going to be for those 10 miles. So I plug in the 10 wherever I see x. So what this looks like is now f of 10, so when x is 10, and then wherever I see x in the equation, I plug in 10, and then I just go through and solve. So f of 10 is equal to 2 times 10 plus 75. I know 2 times 10 is 20, plus 75 gives me 95, so f of 10 is equal to 95. So it'll cost $95 for me to rent this truck and drive it 10 miles. Okay, so now we're given the function, and it tells us that Alexis came up with the equation, or the function, f of x is equal to -2 times x plus 20. And it calculates how many bottles of lotion are left after assembling the baskets. So this is where it's really important. So the variable x represents the number of gift baskets assembled. We can't change that. That's what it is. So that's actually going to be our input. F of x represents the number of bottles of lotion left. So in this case, our initial rate is 20 because that's our y-intercept. So you can work backwards too. Now you have the function, so you know your initial rate is 20. I don't know what that 20 means because I don't really have enough information, but that is my initial rate. And then I know that my rate of change is -2. Again, I don't have enough information to know what the label is on that, but I do know that my rate of change or my slope is -2 because it's connected to my x in my equation. My input is gift baskets assembled, and I know that from what they told me in the problem. And my output is the number of bottles of lotion that are left. Again, I know that from the problem. So now I already know the function. They gave me the function. So this time though, they gave me that there are 6 bottles of lotion left. So that 6 has to go first because that's my output. And this time I'm actually looking for my input. So I have to look backwards. So here I have 6 is equal to -2 times x plus 20. I subtract 20 from both sides and I get -14 is equal to -2x. I divide both sides by -2 and I get x is equal to 7. So I know that 7 gift baskets were assembled if 6 bottles of lotion are left. Okay, so again, initial rate, rate of change, input, output, you need to know what all of these things are and how they connect with your y equals mx plus b. So what I want you to do for your 2 U-Try problems is I want you to identify your initial rate, your rate of change, your input, your output, and I also want you to identify what the function would be and then solve the problem. So again, I'll write it down one more time for you just in case, and I'm sorry that that keeps popping up. So you want your initial rate, the rate of change, and I want it in words and the numbers. So words and numbers. Rate of change, input, output, function, and your answer. And I want this for both of them. As always, if you have any questions, please be sure to write them down or email me so we can go over them in class.